Hello Friendzies, welcome back to my channel. So two things. One is really quick, one is super important. The first thing is if you hear noise in the background, there might be some talking, there might be some banging of some sort. We got iced, the weather, in overnight, if I could talk, so my brother is around with a shovel and some other tools to try to get us out of the ice chamber that we're kind of in right now. Also, the second thing is welcome to Black History Month. It's the first video of Black History Month, and you know, the United States government might not recognize it more, but here on the Sharky Chico YouTube channel, we absolutely do. Just like I have done for the past couple years, every video this month we're going to be talking about a Black content creator that I follow that is incredible, and part of me is like, oh no, I feel really bad that it's only like super popular creators, but at the same time, they're popular for a reason. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with this. Anyway, the creator that we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to put her socials up here. She has Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Those are the platforms I follow her on. I'm sure she has other social medias, but these are all the platforms I follow her on. We're going to be talking about Paige Talon. I hope I said her last name correctly. She recently got engaged to her partner, her queer partner. I wasn't sure of her partner's pronouns, but Paige does use she, her. Very exciting. But Paige is a plant educator and a plant enthusiast. She also does DIY and like home design stuff. That's what it says on her like link tree essentially. I think it was called like a bio, but it's like a website bio instead of just like your profile bio. Anyway, I specifically found Paige because my mom is like a big plant person. My mom is the plant lady. So I am trying to kind of become part of a plant lady, and a couple years ago I brought an orchid home who was very small and was not doing well, and I randomly, because you know how TikTok works, randomly came across Paige's video about caring for orchids, and it was a little too late for my orchid, but I did follow all of the steps that she had suggested in her video. It was, you know, a quick TikTok video. I'm sure she has more in-depth information on one of her other social medias. At the time, I was only following her TikTok, but I was able to keep my orchid alive a little bit longer than it maybe could have been. And I did almost get another sprout, but it had been too little too late, and I wasn't able to get my hands on some orchid bark in time. But I did save my orchid from dying sooner. Okay? So huge shout out to Paige on that. She is incredible. I also think she's absolutely beautiful, and it's really, really exciting to know that she is engaged, and I'm so happy for her. She got engaged in a botanical garden. Literally my dream. So make sure you go check out all of her social medias. Again, I'm going to have the picture of all of her social medias, and I will link all three. I'll link all her social medias in the description. I was going to say one or two, but I follow 3 of her social medias, so I'm going to put all 3 in there. Anyway, let's get into the video. Okay, so today we are doing something a little bit different because it is extremely important, and while I keep encouraging everybody to keep their eyes kind of like ground level in your local community, keep an eye on Minneapolis and what's happening there, but keep your eyes on ground level, things that you can do to not feel helpless and also benefit your community. But I have some things from specifically this Instagram. Sorry, I wasn't sure what side I was going to go on. Anything that I post, infographics, 98% of the time is going to be specifically from this Instagram, So Informed. I highly suggest you follow them. Again, most of my information and all of my infographics are pretty much from them. So these are also some information from them. I'm going to be reading it off of my brother's iPad that he very kindly let me borrow, but I will put the infographic here as well. And also, if you just want to read them on your own time and the picture here isn't big enough, again, go follow So Informed. This is one of their more recent posts. The day that I'm filming this, I'm going to have the date over here at some point in the video, just so by the time this video goes out, the day that I'm filming this, if there's newer information that I'm not sharing in the video, you will know that this is the information as of this day. Okay, it's going to be a bit long, but these are things, recent ICE-related bills introduced across the U.S. It's going to be 24 or 25 states, and then a little bit about some federal ICE-related bills. I'm going to be reading them. This is going to be a longer video, and if you stay till the end, it won't be clickbait, because I will tell you about the things in the thumbnail. Clickbaited you a little bit, but it's for the greater good, right? So, in Arizona, HB 2881 would ban immigration agents from accessing sensitive locations such as public schools, colleges, and universities, daycare centers, public libraries, courts, hospitals, and medical centers. SB 1213 proposes updates to current Arizona statutes regarding immigration enforcement, clarifying that no state or local agency may limit the enforcement of federal immigration laws, ensuring compliance with federal standards, and modifies the procedures for determining the immigration status of individuals during lawful stops, detentions, or arrest, mandating that law enforcement officials make responsible attempts to ascertain immigration status where there is reasonable suspicion or of unlawful presence. HB 2657 would ban any law enforcement agency in the state from entering into, modifying, or renewing agreements with federal immigration authorities to perform immigration detainment or operate detention facilities. In California, AB 1537 would ban local law enforcement from taking a second job with ICE. AB 1633 would levy 50% tax on all profits for private immigration detention centers in the state. In Colorado, SB 26-005 would allow civilians to sue federal agents in state court for constitutional violations during immigration enforcement. In Georgia, SB 389 would require immigration agents to wear visible identification during public immigration enforcement functions and prohibit such officers from wearing face coverings during such functions. SB 397 would allow civilians to sue federal agents who violate constitutional rights. In Hawaii, SB 2055 requires the Civil Rights Commission to establish a helpline for individuals to submit reports of harms by federal troop deployments, federal law enforcement, or immigration enforcement operations in the state. And HB 1886 bans ICE and other federal agents from covering their faces. In Indiana, SB 76 expands requirements for state and local governments to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement and gives the state government new tools to penalize local entities that fail to comply. In Iowa, HF 2041 would require law enforcement in the state to cooperate with ICE and any other federal immigration agencies. In Kentucky, SB 86 would require state law enforcement agencies to enter into formal agreements with ICE under the federal 287 (G) program. I'll put that here. And also, just so you know, if I'm reading this stuff and you're not understanding what I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with looking this stuff up. If anything, ICE, the government, fascists, all of them rely on us being clueless and feeling too dumb to ask. If you're like, I'm not understanding what she's saying and I feel really stupid, if I try to look it up or ask somebody what it means, they're going to call me dumb. Don't worry about that. We are absolutely past the point where you should feel guilty about not understanding it. There's nothing wrong with looking it up. I'm a librarian. I clickbaited this video about librarian merch. Go look it up. If anything, people are going to be excited and people are going to go out of their way, especially at your local library, to help you understand and find the resources you need. We encourage it so much. Nobody thinks you're dumb. Nobody cares. Maybe you are. I'm dumb. Doesn't matter. Go look it up if you're not understanding it. A lot of these things I need to look up and better understand, but it is information that I would like to pass along. Okay. In Maryland, HB 495 would ban immigration enforcement agents from detaining individuals while they are attending their immigration hearings. HB 444 would prohibit the state, local governments, county sheriffs, and any agency, officer, employee, or agent of the state or a unit of local government from entering into an immigration enforcement agreement and require the termination of an existing immigration enforcement agreement on or before July 1st, 2026. In Missouri, HB 2520 would prohibit ICE agents from concealing their identity or wearing masks that conceal their identity when performing operations in the state. In Mississippi, SB 2329 would create a grant program to reimburse Mississippi law enforcement agencies that partner with ICE through the federal 287G program for expenses such as travel, equipment, and training programs. SR 18 is a resolution that calls upon all Mississippi's local law enforcement entities to enter into a 287G agreement with ICE. That is something that I'm going to personally be looking up. And I will look it up in the meantime and put it in the description. That way we can all learn together. Okay? Because I'm seeing, that's like the third or fourth time I'm seeing that in these. And I'm like, what's that? You know? In Nebraska, LB 1149 would require the disclosure of proposed state agency contracts with private entities that have contracts with ICE. In New Hampshire, HB 1570 would require local budgetary authority before a law enforcement agency enters into an agreement with ICE to assist in the enforcement of federal immigration law and grants the budgetary authority continuing power to terminate the agreement. SB 623 would require any state or local law enforcement officers assisting ICE personnel to display their name or badge number and prohibits those officers from wearing masks and disabling their body-worn camera. HB 1364 would require municipalities, counties, and any other political subdivision that enter into an agreement with ICE under the 287G program to submit quarterly reports to the state attorney general starting December 31st, 2026. In New York, AB 3506 prohibits police, school resource officers, prohibition agencies, state entities, and state employees from questioning individuals regarding their citizenship or immigration status. AB 9376 requires the creation of an immigration enforcement activity transparency dashboard. I'm only doing this because it's in quotes, so I'm just like reading you with quotes. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. Which shall be made publicly available and track certain information relating to immigration activities within New York State. AB 9589 would prohibit ICE from entering hospitals without a signed judicial warrant or order. Rhode Island, S 2278 would prohibit state and municipal officials or body from entering into and renewing any agreements that will also be used to detain individuals for federal immigration violations. In Tennessee, HB 1918 would require ICE agents to provide a signed judicial warrant to enter private business. HB 1937 would require signed judicial warrants for the detainment of any person in the state by federal immigration agents. SB 2015 would prohibit the state from obligating, appropriating, or otherwise expending state funds, personnel, or other state resources to support ICE. See, I'm like, even me, I'm mid-sentence and I'm like, hold on, is that the right word? I could read a little bit more. I get the information I need. There's nothing wrong with that. In Utah, SB 136 would prohibit state and local law enforcement from collaborating with ICE in operations around a sensitive area, including churches, hospitals, libraries, or courthouses. Prohibit federal law enforcement from entering non-public government-operated sensitive spaces like healthcare centers or shelter centers, and prohibit federal law enforcement from using facial coverings. H0745 would establish schools, daycares, polling places, and government buildings as sensitive locations in which ICE would only be allowed to enter with a signed judicial warrant. In Virginia, HB 1438 would prohibit local law enforcement and other state government agencies from cooperating with ICE. HB 1440 would level misdemeanor charges against any ICE agent who violates protected areas such as schools, hospitals, and any other place or facility designated by the Attorney General. In Washington, there's a couple for Washington. And again, I don't really know if I kind of established this. It's an overarching thing. These are like specific to the state. At the end, I'm going to read a couple of the federal things. These are to help you on the ground. I did say that, but like for your state, you might not know this about the state that you're in, and this is not every state. There might already be things in place, or there might not be anything at all. But these are the newer ICE-related bills that have been introduced across the U.S. I had to double check the title on the post here, but these are like to help you know, because I didn't know any of these things. I didn't know any of these things about any of the states. And if it's a little overwhelming for you and you feel like you can't contain all the information, pay attention to your state. If I didn't read anything from your state, or I haven't read anything from your state yet, maybe look it up, just so you know. We need to know our rights. We need to know how to keep ourselves safe. We need to know how to keep our neighbors safe, but we also need to know the overarching things that are happening where we are. Okay, let's get into Washington. SB 5906 would restrict ICE from access to sensitive locations like schools, hospitals, and daycares without a judicial warrant. HB 2644 would require all ICE agents to wear body cameras. HB 2641 would ban ICE agents from law enforcement jobs in the state. And then in parentheses, specifically applies to ICE agents who were hired after Trump began his second term on January 20th, 2025. HB 2597 would establish a legal framework for individuals to seek remedies for violations of their federal constitutional rights during immigration enforcement operations. SB 6286 would allow the state to fine private detention facilities that deny entry to the Department of Health for an inspection. SB 5855 would make it illegal for local, state, and federal law enforcement officers to wear masks and allow individuals arrested by wearing a mask to sue. And then we have West Virginia. SB 615 would require local law enforcement to immediately turn over anyone to be undocumented to ICE. And then this is in quotes. If the same individual is apprehended and determined to be in the country illegally for a second time, that individual shall be guilty of a felony offense and shall be incarcerated in a state penitentiary for no less than 3 and no more than 5 years, and upon release from the state penitentiary shall be immediately turned over to ICE. HB 4845 would, and again this is in quotes, create prohibitions on the illegal entry into or illegal presence in this state by a person who is an alien. And then SB 4 would create a new criminal offense for bystanders who approach first responders too closely, in parentheses, within 25 feet during enforcement operations. A violation would be a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine of $50 to $500, jail time up to 1 year, or both. In Wisconsin, SB 493 prohibits local law enforcement from assisting ICE in detaining individuals in the state. All right, and last but not least, we have the federal ICE-related bills recently introduced across the United States. This is on the federal level. Everything else was on the state level. S3 675 would amend Title 18 of the U.S. Code to enhance penalties for those who use a deadly or dangerous weapon, in quotes, including a weapon that is intended to cause death or danger but fails to do so by reason of a defective component or inflicts bodily injury, against ICE and other federal agents. Penalties would include fines and a prison sentence for up to 40 years. HR 7046 would grant victims the right to sue federal law enforcement officers as well as state and local officers for civil rights violations and abolish the defense of qualified immunity in court. HR 7172 would require comprehensive data to be released within 72 hours of any immigration enforcement flights, prohibit aircraft operators from hiding their tracking data while on federal missions, and require disclosure of the condition and restraints used on detained individuals. HR 5973 would create use of force standards for ICE agents, require them to wear body cameras. HR 7071 would repeal ICE funding increases from the Big Beautiful Bill and reallocate those funds to extend healthcare tax credits. And HR 7123 would require the termination of federal funding to ICE, the rescission of its unobligated funds, and the formal dissolution of the agency within 90 days of enactment. So those are all of the recent things that have been introduced. Again, there may be none in your state. There may already be things in place in your state. I know one of the couple of the places pinged in my head because they're states that I have lived in and been to. So again, the date for when all of this is happening, when I'm filming this, is like the most up to date that I am. And again, if there's any like super pressing new news, that's like a shock to the system. Not saying that everything isn't a shock to the system, but I hope you understand what I mean. I will be putting additional infographics in the video because of that. But I wanted to keep everybody as informed as possible. I sat through and I read those on my own time. I'm reading them again now. Like I said, if you want to see them, if it's like a little bit harder to hear somebody say it, if you can't really read the infographics while they were here, please go follow So Informed. That is where, again, I get most of my information because they do their fucking research. And also, don't forget to check out Paige Talon. If you want some plant time, if you're like, okay, I read about my state, I need 5 seconds to chill out so I can go be part of my community, check out Paige's page. That was funny the way I said that. But I love it. I love that there's like, I love that she's a plant lady. I'm obsessed with that. I'm not good with plants, but I feel like if I watch more of Paige's videos, I'll be better at plants. I know how to take care of orchids now, and it's all thanks to Paige. So thank you guys so much for watching. Before I leave you, I won't clickbait you. This was a gift, so I'm assuming Etsy, but it's Librarian Heather. It has my name on it. I'm assuming it's from Etsy. It was a gift for my birthday. And this, A Place for All My Books, it's a tote bag from Barnes & Noble. I know A Place for All My Books is like a new board game. I'm probably never going to play it because it seems like one of the really complicated ones. But I got that at Barnes & Noble. I don't remember how much it cost. I picked it out and it was also a gift. I want to say like $23 to $25, okay? Didn't clickbait you, and you got information and you learned something new. And I'm going to try to put that, what was it? It was 287G program. I'm going to try to find what the hell that is and put it in the description because I have no idea what that is. And I would like to know. And I bet we would all like to know together. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed and let me know what Librarian merch you have or any Librarian merch you would suggest, right? All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!